do some chanting, the dedication of offerings, and then the 3 refuges and 5 precepts. Then I'll lead a meditation and give some reflections, and please ask some questions. If you can put your questions into chat initially, that's helpful. If not, it doesn't mean that I won't take questions verbally, but we'll see how we go with the chat questions, because I find it quite helpful to be able to look at them. And then when I've exhausted those chat questions, I'll invite you to speak, and that will be lovely to have plenty of questions, especially anything that's particularly, if it relates to what I've been saying, even better. It doesn't have to. So I'll share my screen now so you can see the chanting. If perhaps not. Wait a minute. There we are. To the Blessed One, the Lord who fully attained perfect enlightenment, to the teaching which he expounded so well, and to the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, to these, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, we render with offerings our rightful homage. It is well for us that the Blessed One, having attained liberation, still had compassion for later generations. May these simple offerings be accepted for our long-lasting benefit and for the happiness it gives us. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and Blessed One, I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaং saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sangham saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sangham saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sangham saranang gacchami. Oh, didn't mean that. Panatipata Veramani Sikkhabadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adinadana Veramani Sikkhabadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. Kamesu Michachara Veramani Sikkhabadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. Musavada Veramani Sikkhabadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. Sura Meriamajapamadhatana Veramani Sikkhabadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness. Imani pancha sikkhabadani silena sikutinyanti silena bhoga sampada silena niputinyanti tasma silang visuddhaye. These are the 5 precepts. Virtue is the source of happiness. Virtue is the source of true wealth. Virtue is the source of peacefulness. Therefore let virtue be purified. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Steadying our mind. We can be more aware of our experience. So that sense of steadying the mind is a very helpful place to begin. Our principle is relaxed awareness. We'll relax into that awareness. We relax into a steady state of mind. And from that steady state of mind, we look back at our experience. What's happening? What's this? state of mind. What's this physical experience? We notice the body, the posture, and that noticing is enough to notice. When we notice that the posture is out of balance, it's a natural to bring it back into a point of balance. When we notice that we're leaning one way or another, we simply return to that point of balance. For some people who've been practicing a long time, simply bringing their awareness into the body is enough for it to assume an upright posture without seeming to do anything. For people who are newer to the practice, then we do it more deliberately. We have to build up the posture up from the base of the spine, engaging those muscles to support the back. We have to do it more deliberately to bring back the shoulders and tucking the chin. Let the head be upright. It's quite natural to take a few deep breaths at the beginning, breathing out any tension. And as we bring our attention into the body, we notice the body's language. The body communicates with physical feelings, sensation. So we tune in to the language of the body, noticing sensations wherever they are. Methodically, from the top of the head to the toes, and from the toes back up to the top of the head perhaps, or just noticing where the sensations are strongest, where the tension is being held. Seeing whether we can release the muscles there. Drop the jaw, relax the muscles around the eyes, cheekbones. It's almost like saying hello to different parts of the body, making a connection with even the toes. We might not have said hello to the toes today. Say hello. Coming into the body is like saying hello to a good friend. Being willing to listen to what they have to tell us. A little ache here, or a tightness there. When we relax into the body, the mind slows down. Well, it maybe doesn't, but it often does. That's the idea. Because the pace of the body is a lot slower than the busy pace of the mind. When we're locked into thoughts that move so rapidly. The mind gets restless, but when we give attention to the body, mind tends to calm down. But we're not trying to stop the mind. If we try to do that, it doesn't work. we have to be willing to listen to the mind too. Listening without judging, but without buying into what it's telling us. We don't have to believe. But we can't just say, stop the mind. It doesn't work. We can notice. That's what listening is, noticing. Well, mind, even if we only notice that the mind's busy, and that's all we can notice, that's enough. Well, this is the busy mind. That gives us a perspective on the mind. It's what our experience is. It feels like this. The Buddha talked about 5 hindrances that keep us from calming down and concentrating the mind. And they're very simple. The confusion, doubt. We simply don't buy into it. So, oh, that's the state of mind. That's the mind that's confused. That's the mind that's not sure what to do. That's what that is. So we can notice it, but don't buy into it. That's one of the hindrances. We don't buy into it. We just let it come and go. We don't make a problem out of it. We watch it come, and then we watch it go. Same with restlessness. When the mind's restless, it feels like this. We observe it. And the same with sleepiness. Oh, that feels like this. That's the hindrance of sleepiness. That's how it feels. That's what it's like. And with both those two, which are really opposites, we don't create a problem out of those things, we just notice them. When we notice restlessness, we know we need to relax. We can say to ourselves, relax. When we notice sleepiness, we can say to ourselves, wake up. Be a bit more interested, curious. And the other two hindrances are craving and aversion. These are the push and pull. When we notice we're moving towards, that's craving. And we notice we're pushing away, recoiling from, that's aversion. So we notice the push and pull. So, oh, that's what's happening. That's attraction, that's craving. That's a hindrance. That's aversion, that's pushing away. That's a hindrance. So these 5 hindrances, by not buying into them, simply noticing, they come and go until they gradually weaken. And as they weaken, the mind calms down, becomes more clear and start to be established in mindfulness more easily. It's easier to inquire, to investigate. We come from a place of calm. It all happens naturally. It's not about me getting something or achieving or attaining something. It's just the natural state of mind. It's what the mind does. It's gradual movement from restlessness and anxiety to calm and clarity. from that state of clarity we can reflect. What's reflecting mean? What does that mean? So, when we experience something, we can reflect. Am I creating suffering out of this? That's dukkha. That's what the Buddha meant. It's possible to create suffering out of anything. That's the teaching of dukkha. That's a way to reflect. Rather than thinking, oh, I'm a failure, I'm hopeless, I can't do this, we notice, oh, that's the experience of feeling I'm a failure and that I can't do this. That's dukkha, I know what that is. It's suffering, but it's something I'm creating. I'm doing that. It's optional. I can let go. Let go of the desire for it to be otherwise. Nothing's changed except our attitude towards our experience. That's what we call insight, shift of attitude. But insight comes to us. It's not something we go and get. We don't make it happen. It happens. It's like the truth is revealed rather than reasoned out, not through trying to grasp something. Some might think, why is that? It's because the truth the Buddha has pointed to arises from the end of grasping. It's from letting go. So it's when we let go that insight happens. When we surrender to the way things are, so rather than trying to get or become. The Buddha said the origin of suffering is grasping, craving. You can't fix suffering, but you can let go of the origin of it, where it's coming from. How do you know when you experience insight? It's when it feels like you've laid down a burden. So I find this, I think reflecting is a very important part of Buddhist practice. It's not getting calm just for the sake of calm. It's getting, if we are able to calm down the mind, it's for the sake of reflecting. So if reflecting or reflection is yes, like the most important, you could even say, the real purpose of practice, so that we get to that ability to reflect, so that we can penetrate the truth, see things clearly. Then what is it for? Why do we reflect? What's the purpose? Beyond seeing clearly, what's that for? It's for laying down the burden, for experiencing freedom, release. The end of suffering. So we're not trying to become wise. That would be me trying to become wise. That would be sounds very idealistic, and let's become wise, but it's not about me becoming anything. Trying to become wise is an obstacle to practice. Might be an aspiration, a useful aspiration at some point, but it soon becomes idealistic. Where it's a path of letting go of delusion rather than trying to become wise. Letting go of that which obscures. You could say it's like cleaning a mirror so that we can see more clearly in it, or maybe to clear glass so that we can see through it. That seeing clearly is wisdom. From Buddhist perspective, that is wisdom. Seeing things as they are. And it's not an acquiring of something, because that would be like adding to the burden, wouldn't it? There's adding more to this bag. You're trying to add clever things, things you've reasoned out, seem sensible, make logical sense, but if they're adding to the burden, then that's not leading to release. There's no... and we can make the Buddhist practice quite hard work. It can feel like we're adding, accumulating more stuff to do. And then that's an indication that this isn't what Buddhist practice is about. We've missed the point. We're trying too hard. It's about letting go. That's what Buddhist practice is. It's about seeing through delusion rather than trying to become wise. Seeing through how we create suffering, seeing through the futility of trying to make something which is intrinsically unsatisfactory into something that could be permanently fulfilling. And can invest a lot of time and effort in that, in trying to make something permanently fulfilling which is intrinsically unsatisfactory. We have to learn to let go. We have to train ourselves in insight to see the unsatisfactory nature of things, so that will encourage us to let go, so that we don't invest in investments which are unsecure, bound to eventually fail, eventually disappoint. We don't demand that of things, of the world. We can't demand the permanent happiness of the world because it's not possible. It can't give that to us. We're asking too much. It's not possible. Can't demand permanent happiness. When we stop demanding, then and turn that around into accepting the way the world really is, the way things are, then there's a peace in that. There's a greater happiness in understanding the way things are than trying to make the way things are into happiness, a permanent happiness. That's the essence of Buddhist teaching, is that happiness comes out of understanding, a truer kind of happiness. That's a happiness which isn't impermanent, because it's not dependent on conditions. It's just understanding the way things are. It's not dependent on conditions. That's understanding conditions. But everything, if we invest in things which are conditioned or conditioning, or if we put our investment in those things, those external conditions, then when they're intrinsically unsatisfactory, they're bound to change, then they're bound to end ultimately in disappointment, and that investment is the wrong. We're investing in the wrong thing. If we invest in our wisdom, in our insight, in our cultivation of truth, realization that comes out of seeing things clearly, that's an investment that isn't dependent on conditions, so it won't change. So that's a reliable investment. And that's an incredible thing, isn't it? That doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't we have to give everything away or anything like that. It's not an opinion about the world in that way. It's simply a recognition of what's insecure, that the world is insecure, but that there is some security when we understand it the way it is. And the Buddha talked about discovering an island, perhaps describe it as an island. Or perhaps you could think of it as solid ground. There's solid ground. Even though everything around is insecure, there's some solid ground in understanding that. Just that knowing, that understanding that that's the way things are is some solid ground that we can rely on. So if you have any questions, do feel free to put some in the chat box. I'm not getting any questions, so I'm going to have to carry on talking if you won't ask me any questions. Maybe would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
I wrote a question in the chat, Martin.
Oh, it didn't come up for me. I don't know why. Oh yes, it's appeared now. Sorry. Hi, I'm sometimes unsure of strong emotions such as anger.
No, that's not mine.
Yeah, Martin, sorry, that's mine there.
Oh, I will. So maybe, Susan, you need to ask again, because it didn't seem to come through.
Okay.
Shall I answer Will's question then?
Yes, do.
Okay. I'm sometimes unsure if strong emotions such as anger are in themselves a hindrance, i.e. aversion, or is it only if we grasp? I'm going to have to go back to Will's question because I'm missing something here. Or is it only if we grasp?
Shall I? Yeah, Martin, I've just realised I have a few spelling errors. It would be easy if I just...
if you explain.
Yeah, so it was just really if a strong emotion like anger came up, if that in itself is a hindrance which sort of needs to be, dealt with, for want of a better word, or if that in itself is just another thing that comes and passes, and it's only if we really make something of it or grasp onto it or try and push it away that then it becomes a hindrance. So that's where the confusion lies.
Yeah, it's confusing, isn't it? It is confusing. Yes. Yeah. Yes, well, you could, in terms of being a hindrance, anger being a hindrance, aversion being a hindrance, yes, as an obstruction to concentration and calm, then pushing it away, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Like, stop being angry, you know. You could say that. And you could think this object, the object that's causing this anger to arise, is not helping my meditation here. Perhaps, you know, and one way of doing that is to notice the anger or frustration or aversion rather than go into the story that's causing it to arise. So what happens is you've changed the object of your meditation now, or the object. The object is no longer the story that's creating the anger. The object has become the anger that has been... Now, that's not causing anger to arise. Well, it might do. If you then think, I shouldn't feel angry, then you can be angry about being angry, and you can create more anger that way. And then you just notice the anger again. So by what you're taking, moving your awareness to the experience of that emotional state is, this is what it's like to feel like this. It doesn't create more of the thing you're experiencing, but it enables you to notice it and to bear with it and watch it cease, because you're not adding fuel to it. So because the things inevitably change, they inevitably cease, they can't not cease, then it will. Now, whether you notice it cease, it may depends on your awareness. You might only realize with hindsight that you're not angry anymore, that the mind's picked up something else, and then you might suddenly think, oh gosh, I was angry and now I'm not. I've got obsessed with something else. And so you realize, at least with hindsight, that came to an end. But with more keener insight, you might notice it come to an end. You might notice that by sustaining your awareness of that state of mind, you might be able to see it through to the end, to actually notice it's come to, that's no longer, I don't feel angry anymore. And that's very helpful, because it really makes you understand impermanence. It's a helpful way to understand impermanence. And also you don't identify with it anymore, because you don't attach a sense of my anger to it, because you see it's just something which it came into existence. It existed for a while and then it came to an end. So it breaks down that sense of owning that. It's not really, it's just, it's anger. It's like any, it's just a human condition. That's what happens. That's what, as human beings, that we can experience. It's normal rather than personal. So there can be a source of insight to see it clearly. Now that is reflecting on anger. In fact, you can deliberately cause anger to arise so that you can investigate it. And this can be a useful way of understanding. Not just understanding anger, but understand emotions, how they arise and cease. And we could do that as a practice to deliberately cause emotion to arise, so that we can investigate it. And you would think, well, why would you need to do that? But it's surprising how we suppress emotion so quickly that we don't even notice it. Sometimes we can be so good at suppressing anger that we don't realize we're angry. We don't even think, well, somebody might say to us, oh, talk about anger, and we might think, oh, I don't experience anger. Because we're so good at suppressing it, we don't realize, we don't notice it. So sometimes we have to deliberately cause emotions to arise. This is not for everyone, but for some people, it can be necessary to cause emotion to arise so that we can investigate it and understand it. And get in touch with it, to make contact with our emotions. It can sometimes be necessary to do that deliberately. So the hindrances are not a problem. And I think we can think of the hindrances as a problem because they're getting in the way of our concentration. But the hindrances are a gift, really, because they can teach us so much. But this way of experiencing, allowing things to come into experience, allowing them to exist, allowing them to cease and not to interfere. Also, because it doesn't add fuel to these states, the hindrances dissipate over time. Naturally, there's nothing being. We're not adding anything to them. Let's say the hindrance of doubt, skeptical doubt. Well, when you stop buying into that, even though it might be present, you think, I'm not even sure what's the point of doing. Why am I sitting here? What's the point? It's a waste of time. But you're still sitting there and noticing that sense, that hindrance of skeptical doubt. Whilst you're doing that, noticing, you're not adding to it. And then you realise you're still sitting and it's gone away. And it loses its power because you understand it. The things that you understand lose their power. And so then if doubt arises again, you just think, oh, it's doubt. It will come and go, and it does. It comes and goes. It's just understood, and we don't create a problem out of it. And so the hindrances, even restlessness and sleepiness, you can penetrate them. You can recognize, let's say, recognizing restlessness is a real art, because our experience is probably 99% restlessness. Maybe not. We lurch between restlessness and sleepiness, don't we? But depending on your personality, you get an awful lot of restlessness or maybe a lot of sleepiness. But, maybe that you get so much restlessness you don't notice or even recognize that this is it. I'm experiencing restlessness. So when you notice that's restlessness, straight away you've got you're so close to the saying to yourself, relax. It's so close to that. There's no distance between noticing restlessness and saying, relax, and you're watching it go away, watching it disappear. Because it's a restless state of mind. It's something you're doing. So all you're saying is, stop doing that. You don't have to do that. Let it go. Let go. And so it's sleepiness is harder, if anything, because you can cut through sleepiness through investigating it. You would think it wouldn't be possible, but it is possible. By simply investigating, it feels like this. You energize the mind because you're curious. Creating curiosity, developing a sense of curiosity, is an energizing thing to do. You wouldn't believe it was possible to sort of just develop sufficient curiosity about restlessness to come through it, about sleepiness to come through it to the other side. But curiosity doesn't help restlessness. You want to just say relax. So when we learn the tools like that, then it become hindrances. Aren't a problem, and they just cease by themselves. And and it just takes time. So we don't, because we know that, we don't worry about the hindrances. So I don't know whether that helped you, Will, because I'm not sure if it answered your question.
It does, and many other questions, so thank you very much.
Okay. I'm not sure if this question's come from... No. Susan, have you asked me your question? Perhaps you need to...
I typed it in twice.
Then in that case, you're going to have to speak it to me.
It's not really a question. I've been struggling, reading, trying to understand the truth of emptiness, and I just wondered if you would like to talk a bit about emptiness. Like, I understand something about dependence originating and stuff like that, but still, the idea of emptiness still eludes me, and I thought maybe you could talk about it a bit.
Yes, emptiness is an interesting thing to talk about. Sorry, I have got your message now, but it came via Wangdu. I think you must have sent it to him and he's forwarded it to me. That's why it didn't come up with your name. I've got it now. Yeah, talking about emptiness, the idea of emptiness. Of course, emptiness is an idea. When we think of it like that, it's an idea, but of course, it's an experience, a realization, and so, and that I think it's the way of everything, that when we talk about them, we use words, we give them a name, give them a label, and we create an idea out of them. But the emptiness isn't an idea; it's an experience. So what is that experience? I think it's the experience that there's nothing substantial. Maybe to put it in other terms, rather than emptiness, everything's empty. Where's the substantial? What's solid? What's substantial about our experience? Find something which is of intrinsically has a substantial essence in it. That's substantial. And so, when we look for something which has got a genuine, that's substantial, we're looking for something which is not just substantial, but we're really looking for something that's substantial and won't change. We want it to be solid. We want it to be here, and we don't want it to go away. If it's only as substantial as a fleeting cloud in the sky, that's nothing much. That's not really substantial, is it? It's nothing there. So, when experience of emptiness is recognizing that there's nothing really there. There's nothing substantial. That what we think of as substantial is a creation of mind. It's what we want. We want things to be substantial. That comes from our desire. We want solidity. We want permanence. We want reliability. We want to be able to have solid ground, but there's no where there is no solid ground. You can't have it. When there's no solid ground in the conditioned world, you can't make solid ground out of it. So the emptiness is recognizing that insubstantiality of things. Not saying that there's nothing there, like emptiness, like there's nothing. There's nothing intrinsically substantial there. So you can say there's nothing there, but it's you could say there's nothing. There's nothing. It's just a way. It's just a use of words. Emptiness. It's just like a word, isn't it? Emptiness. It's empty. What's it empty of? It's empty of anything solid and reliable. That's how I see it. So it's an experience.
Because things are always changing as well.
Yeah, so it's the experience of insubstantiality. Things are always changing. And it feels, it's like it feels, and we use that term emptiness. So it feels so insubstantial. We think it's empty. We call it empty. It's empty of substance. It's like you can't, if you want to own it, what can you own? Because it's not substantial enough to own. There's nothing there to own. It can't be owned. It's like trying to own a cloud. That's my cloud. And it can't be that. A cloud can't be owned. It can't be mine, can it? And that's lovely. That's like, a flying bird. A bird flies overhead. And it's empty. Because you can't add anything. You can't own it. You can't make anything out of it. It's just...
That's very helpful. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If no one else has a question, could I make a comment? I wondered, this week, it's been quite amazing to see the international reaction to the death of Thich Nhat Hanh, and I wondered, even the US State Department made a statement, and this just is kind of taken everyone by surprise. I think that he made such an impact in his life, such an impression, and that is a very hopeful sign, I think, in this day and age.
Isn't it? How that's possible? Yes, isn't it wonderful? Yeah. Well, it's good to notice good things. I like the way you've pointed that out, because there's so much we're presented with so much negativity. One thing around emptiness is don't create a problem out of it. Sometimes we come across words and we think, what's that? And yet we can make a problem out of that. These words are synonymous than many words which point to the same truth. So you might hear the deathless and think, that we create a problem out of that. Because actually it's no difference, it's the same truth. We're all pointing to the same truth and describing something with a word which is an experience. So as long as we're not experiencing something, we're grasping a word, and it's it can be difficult and then confusing. What is it? The deathless. What's the unconditioned? What's that? How can that be? What's the uncaused, the uncreated, the unconditioned? So, and then some people talk about the ultimate truth, and then the end of suffering, and all of these things, they're all pointing to, they're all the same. There's no difference, but they're different words pointing at the same thing. And because they're an experience and not something which can be reasoned out, you can't make sense of them by the rational mind. Well, that's all right. It just, you have to understand, or you have to let them be. And it's like when Ajahn Chah called Amaravati, he meant, and in his translations, the deathless realm. So Amaravati is the deathless realm. One of his favourite stanzas is the gates to the deathless are open. It's like the gates of Amaravati. Walk this way, to the deathless realm. And this is a love. These are aspirational or inspirational ideas, not to be kind of create a problem out of. But just because we don't know really what that means, doesn't mean that we might not one day understand it. So we take some confidence that Ajahn Chah knew what he was talking about. He didn't name the monastery for nothing. That he thought this was something could be experienced, and so when you listen to his teaching, you know that's the direction they're heading in. That one day we'll understand that, but we just listen to his teaching and follow it step by step. That's all we need to do. And
also, it's like what you were talking about earlier about insight. And very often one finds after times of meditation that you suddenly have an insight into something without necessarily understanding it, but suddenly you have an insight and it all makes sense suddenly.
Yeah, it changes your life. There's a shift happens. That's all that matters. We might spend the next 30 or 40 years understanding it. We don't 10, 20 years, however long, it doesn't matter. It might not, it might be we'll know something happened, something shifted, and it will make a difference to the way we live our lives, and that's what matters. It doesn't really matter. Maybe we haven't got a long enough life to completely understand it, but that doesn't matter, because what happens is we've laid something down, and we've let go of a burden, and we've released some amount of suffering in our lives, and that's the point of the Buddha's teaching. That's what he spent his life teaching for. If it wasn't possible, he wouldn't have bothered. That's what makes it worthwhile, that somebody somewhere might let go of some suffering. And we can do that. That's the wonderful thing, and you can experience that. And when we just in that very moment, that moment of, say, being willing to listen to somebody and not interrupt, is a moment when we can let go, and that is a way of bringing suffering to an end. Just that possibility that we'll let go. We can let go of a fixed position that we hold on to, and we don't have to persuade the other person that we're right. That's a wonderful opportunity. When we grasp that, when we let go of our grasping, really, when we let go of our attachment to that view, then that's a way we bring suffering to an end. And it's possible in every moment. That opportunity to let go is possible. It's an opportunity we can take, and it might present itself in now, or in a minute from now, or 10 minutes from now. Those opportunities are continually available to us. Therefore, the end of suffering is continually possible, and it becomes a habit to let go and not create suffering. So I think it's a good time to do the closing homage. Thank you for coming this evening, and have a good week, more than a week, and perhaps see you back here in the group. I don't think I'm teaching next week, but I'll be teaching probably the week after. I think Nick's teaching next week. So take care, all of you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Martin.
I'll just do that closing homage. The Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, I render homage to the Buddha, the blessed one. The teaching so completely explained by him, I bow to the Dhamma. The Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well, I bow to the Sangha.